get is y'all don't know anything about racing. This is true. You're right. You're in the wrong show.
Yeah.
You're watching the wrong show if you want to hear like super engineer stuff.
Hello and welcome back to another Hey in the Apex. Evan, how's it going, man?
Rough weekend, but a good weekend overall. It was a fun race, but rough weekend for us Lando fans. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and I think rough weekend for those that really want I mean these are the breaks and this is the cliche that's racing. Obviously Oscar was in front when Lando's engine let go, but this is one where they've been kind of trading barbs back and forth over several races, and it was tight and it could go either way, and now the gap, it's not over. It's definitely not over, but the gap has opened up much more than the racing warranted at this point.
Yeah. I saw something there. There was a bigger gap with fewer races left when Hamilton needed to come back against Verstappen, and barring that crazy Michael Massey decision, he really could have made up that points deficit.
Yeah, I think
in a lot less races. It was like 4 races
yeah,
left. He was like 40 points behind or something.
yeah. I think the difference though is same equipment.
Yeah.
And I would say pretty equally matched drivers. It's going to be hard for Lando to, what does he have to do? Like win maybe 6 of the, maybe more than that. Actually, I think he's going to win if Piastri finishes second, which is a huge if. There's 8 races left. I think he'd have to win 7.
Yeah.
To guarantee it. If he wins 7, there's a 7-point gap between first and second. So if he if he wins 7 of the 8, Piastri wins the other one, that drops him, that makes it 42 points he'll make up, which is enough. So it's tough, but again, that's assuming, and again, we just found just in real time, few days removed from looking like a 1-2 turned into a DNF for him. That could easily just reverse the other way, and then those points slide back. But yeah, no, Hamilton was in a different car, and also just not compete. It's just different when you're competing against your teammate, where it's especially as the second driver. It's not like it's a slightly more difficult. And then also like Hamilton, he went and he basically took that title away from Verstappen until, as you mentioned, the
oh no, Michael!
Formula One has never been about rules and technicalities, Evan. Therefore, let's throw the rule book out because this is fun.
Exactly.
A sport known for just being flippant with the rules or something. I don't know exactly what the excuse was, but we're just gonna ignore all of the entire rules around safety car procedures and everything else to allow Max to win the championship. That's what they're saying.
Pretty much.
Anyway, yeah, as bad as the weekend was for Lando, there was one team that definitely had it worse, as Morgan was pointing at. Well, let's go ahead and take a look here at what the last weekend did to us. So start with the kind of the race finish here as I get this up. And open. There we go. So obviously, it was Piastri from Max, Hadjar, which I know you're going to want to talk about, so I'll hold on that for a second. George Russell in 4th, Alman, Bierman, Stroll, Alonso, Yuki, and Esteban Ocon finished out the points. It was a lot of incident-filled race, which we're going to definitely talk through. But Evan, we do have to, unfortunately, recap our predictions.
Yeah.
We both had Lando winning and Oscar DNFing. it's hard to be that close to being right, but being
Yeah.
completely wrong. But that's where we landed. We both were very close to nailing it exactly, just wrong McLaren.
We picked the wrong engine to let out.
Yeah, exactly. If the other one had gone, we would have nailed it. I had Max second. You had Lewis second, who also obviously DNF. We both had George third, which he finished fourth. But yeah, we basically inverted the McLarens, and in doing so, got it wrong. But before that, I would say Oscar kind of stepped up, took pole after Lando was quicker the rest of the weekend, and held him off multiple times. And we've said multiple times too that the McLaren in clean air is not the same thing as the McLaren not in clean air, and whoever's in front of those two has a huge advantage. We've not seen any. I don't think a single time this year where the trail car actually catches and passes like on track.
I mean, we got close in the last race in Hungary,
but he couldn't do it,
yeah,
and even on better tires. And I think at fresher tires, I think it's just that car in clean air is so much better than not. And the DRS isn't that great on it either. So like the trail car, which is the other McLaren, does not get as big of a gap as it would normally on DRS. And it's really hard to overtake the other McLaren in that McLaren with how it doesn't turn. I think the closest we actually got was Canada when Lando decided to try and go through Oscar instead of around him. But he actually was. It did look like he had the speed to actually overtake him. There, so maybe that was the closest. But yeah, Oscar had held off Lando, who looked like he was going to coast into a second, and then obviously his engine let go.
I mean, Lando even said it in his post race interview and everything. He was like, "Listen, I felt good about this race. I was within 2 seconds of him. Pretty much the entire race. I was sitting there basically just watching that differential the entire time the race was on, and I was looking at it flirt between that 1.7, 1.8, 1.9, and then he would get it down to 1.2, 1.1. It's just like, you're just not quite getting into that DRS zone. But he was basically running in that area the entire time. And like I just mentioned, he said it in his post race interview. He's like, you get dirty air starting at 4 seconds, 5 seconds back. To actually be able to be competitive and be up there within that 2 second mark, he was happy with that, throughout the entire weekend. The fact of the matter is that this is another situation of Lando, not being able to step up during qualifying, but he was 0.012 seconds behind him.
Yeah, I don't know if that's fair.
It's hard to even say that. That's my point. It's even hard to say that. And they even said, Oscar got a nice little toe coming down the front stretch at the end of his qualifying lap that really helped him out to get that extra little time, because Lando was dominating the weekend. I mean, P1, P2, I think even P3, he was, the top guy. So you got him going into qualifying, and then Q1 and Q2, I think he was tops, if I'm not mistaken. And then going into Q3,
yeah, no, he led every session. He was going for like the Grand Slam of leading every session, qualifying on top, and then Q3 he obviously ended up in second. It was the only score, the only timing sheet he didn't top.
The one thing that I will say, and I think that this was the biggest mistake that he made the entire weekend, and really the only mistake that he made this weekend, was that start. I mean, it's a common thing with him. He gets nervous on the starts. He tries to block off Verstappen. Verstappen got by him, and and once that happened, Oscar got too far ahead.
Yeah, but I don't know that he would have been able to, because there were multiple safety cars where like the gap was removed, and I think. Again, I think that McLaren, the lead McLaren in clean air, is just so much faster. That's number one. Number two, I felt like that being in front again, not as you said, 4 or 5 seconds back, you start throwing the dirty air. That just allowed Oscar to always have a little bit more. Yeah. There were a couple of times, I think in that last stint especially, where Lando got within DRS, and it's like, oh man, he might have really, and then Oscar immediately within a lap and pushed it back out over a second. So I feel like he was able to manage a little bit more, just because again, you can do that in clean air without losing the performance. So I think it would have been very hard for Lando to overtake. But Lando did the right thing, which is he's sitting in the space where, if there is a mistake, he's close enough to pounce. And that's what he really needed. It was going to be hard. And again, if the cars were inverted, it would have been hard for Oscar to overtake. It's just the way that
Agreed.
car is designed. And I think Lando's mistake at the beginning in terms of getting overtake, I just think he's very cautious on these starts. And I think he's surrounded by, and this is going to be the case with Oscar as well, like going forward. Because, nice.
Sorry.
Are you getting the Red Bull drive that we were talking about, or is it going to go to hash hour? We'll talk about that in a minute. But you know, Lando is in a position where it's Max's home race. Max is going to be aggressive, and Lando can't afford to crash. And anytime you have that dynamic, the overtake's likely going to happen because Max will be like, "I'll send this in there. The hell do I care if we crash out?" Obviously, I don't want to crash out, but he's willing to take more of a risk because it's not as damaging. The season's done. And actually, now that there's this bigger gap, Oscar can also be more aggressive with Lando when it's him and Lando, because if they both crash out, that's very good for Oscar.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think, you know, that's the dynamic that Lando's surrounded by a bunch of cars that kind of a double DNF from McLaren is good for the lead driver, which right now is Oscar. And that was even going into this race. So,
yeah.
You know, as it is easy for Max and now Oscar to really kind of, I'm going to sit in the apex here, and you're gonna, if you hit me, we both go out. That's fine by me. And Lando's the one who needs to finish and win races, and it makes it hard. Ultimately, though, I think the safety cars kind of negated that advantage. It's just that he just could not make the overtake there, and the McLaren was so much faster than everyone else that it kind of. I mean, the number of safety cars to bunch the field up, then he opened it back up, then bunch the field up, then open it back. It was just like, it was like flipping a switch. But yeah, that McLaren is a beast. But yeah, I guess so. Everything we're talking about ended up not mattering because his engine was going to blow up regardless. So he could have put it on pole. He could have streaked away at the beginning. Been 20 seconds up, that engine was going to blow up anyway. So
well, you never know. Maybe if he had that clean air, it would have gone coolly because
maybe.
they did say it wasn't an engine issue. They said it wasn't an engine issue. It was more of a car issue, which tells me it's more of the radiators, it's more of the airflow.
I think it's the powertrain. I mean, they can say whatever. They might be trying to skirt around getting an engine penalty. We've seen every single. We've been talking about this multiple races. The McLaren, for whatever reason, is the only Mercedes powered car that has not had issues.
Yeah,
and it had issues.
And there it goes.
It was coming, right? We're like, man, what? How? There's no. It's one thing for the McLaren to be faster. I mean, they have to use the stock engine. They can't modify it or anything. So like, if the Aston Martins and the Mercedes Works team and the Williams all have had their engines let go at some point, you gotta figure that at some point the McLaren, like, it's you know, it's a time bomb waiting to go off, and for Lando it went off at the wrong time. But again, for Oscar now, they have to keep using, like, they can only change, was it 4 engines, or they have 5, whatever it is, for the season. So
I think that they're going into the last change of the season because they always say that you always want to change your engine right before Monza to have a fresh engine going into Monza.
Right,
so a lot of the teams are going to be changing their engines going into this last part of the season. I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if you know, in a few races something happens to that engine for Oscar, and then we're right back in it. You know, it's right back into a close battle between the two of them and see where they're at. Because, like you said, it is an issue. The Mercedes engine has let go on every team now. Every single team that's run the Mercedes engines has had an issue with it at some point during this season. So it's just a matter of time that somebody's going to have an issue with it. Now, hopefully, when I say hopefully, knock on wood, Lando doesn't have another issue with his engine, and he doesn't just become the basically the whipping boy for the team and have all of the bad luck go to him, because that would just make it to where it would be impossible for him to even put up a fight against Oscar. We want to see this battle between them. We're enjoying this battle between the two of them. It was a great race all the way up until, like you said, Lando's engine let go, because he was within that 1 to 2 second range. He was catching or getting into that DRS zone. He was basically one slide by Oscar going into turn 3 or going into turn 1 in those big bank zones that a lot of people were having issues with, and I'm sure we're going to get to that next, talking about the Ferraris. There was a lot of spots on that track that was getting a little moist, it was getting a little wet, a little damp, as they say, and these cars were kind of getting out of line and having some of these issues. And if something like that would have happened with Oscar at the end of that race, not saying it would have, not saying it happened to him, at any point during the race, but it could have happened. Lando was right there to pounce, and that's what we really want to be able to see is the good racing, because we even saw it on that restart, that last restart. Man, Max got up there. He was on his tail for that first couple laps, and then Oscar just dragged it out and pulled away. He really only he won by that 1.2 second mark. I mean, that last little bit wasn't that great for him. There was a possibility Max could get up there and be in that DRS zone and be able to fight against him, but he just didn't have enough. So I think it was just a little bit too many laps, for him to be able to reasonably get up there and try to get past him and stay ahead of Oscar as well. So, but
yeah.
I think we got to get into these Ferraris though, because man.
Well, let's talk about some of the incidents that happened. So let's start, I guess, with Hamilton.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw, he got a penalty for Monza.
He did. 10 grid places.
I thought it was 5. Is it 10?
Is it 5?
Hold on, let me look while you're talking about the Ferrari disaster weekend here.
So yeah, him basically, crashing out, having the issue, it shows. I don't know if that he's checked out yet. It's 5. Morgan said it came up as 5. But I don't see him being so in it this year anymore. He seems so, like, the only word I can think about for it is checked out. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know. Even the penalty he made, the whole thing with the yellow flags, and like he's usually on it with that type of stuff. And he just, like you said, maybe he's not paying attention. Some clarity on the race said normally it's a 10-second penalty. However, the driver made an attempt to reduce his speed brake earlier. So it said it was a mitigation. They said we did not consider a 20 kilometer per hour reduction in speed at double yellow to consider it to be reducing speed significantly.
I mean, 20 kilometers is about 15 miles per hour.
Yeah, I mean, it's splitting hairs. They're saying he attempted to slow down, it wasn't enough. It's before the race started.
Wow.
And I mean, theoretically, this is where it gets screwy, right? They waited until 4 hours after the race to do that investigation. It happened before the race started. And it feels, and not like, to get on I know a lot of Hamilton fans, and I guess he's a McLaren guy, but I'm still the only one who considers him that. But so there's an affinity there. But I know as fans, often feel he's victimized. I mean, the way they did that meant that the penalty wasn't served in a race that he ended up not finishing, because that's normally what you would do. You would be like, okay, you have a 10-second penalty at your first pit stop or whatever. Because they wait till the race was over, and several hours after that, he now has to take a penalty at this next race when he DNF'd anyway. That seems like a little bit of BS. So
now not only do you have a DNF, but even if he qualifies in the top 5, he's still going to be at the bottom half of the timing charts at the very end. Anything, and that's not even saying that car can get up to top 5. Now, I know that we all like to see. We all like to say that Ferrari has a little magic when you get to Monza, which we saw last year. But, I mean, do you really think that car's a top 5 car this year at that track? I mean, it's going to be tough for them.
It's not. It's not a good car. I think Morgan's right. Lewis wants out of that car. But, there's nowhere to go. So you'll be in that car. That's the reality of the situation. He's not the first one, and he won't be the last one that regrets going to Ferrari, because Ferrari's got it's Ferrari. It's almost like you have to say yes, even if it's a bad idea. I mean, there's currently the Williams number 2 driver that could be driving the McLaren.
Yeah,
so,
this is true.
um, so yeah, no, he would definitely get a drive, but with a competitive car, that's tougher.
Well, I mean, I could almost see. I mean, I know Cadillac just signed Checo and Botas, but I mean, if Lewis
That's not
comes
a
a
compet.
knocking,
That's no. I think everyone but McLaren and probably Mercedes would fire one of their two drivers.
yeah,
But but all right, you don't want to go. You don't want to go and be like Max's number two. He's not going to do that. That seat's
yeah,
open, and I think Red Bull would take him in a second, but he doesn't want to go there.
yeah.
And then he's at Ferrari, and then you got McLaren and Mercedes. No one else is even competitive.
Is that second Red Bull seat open though? Really, really, or is
Well,
it
we're gonna
just
talk
being
about
kept?
you're gonna talk about you're
Is
gonna
it
talk
getting
about your
kept?
man.
Is it
Let me
getting
tell you
kept
something.
warm for somebody else?
Okay, so we're gonna talk about your boy in a second. But
Let's finish up with Ferrari though. Let's finish up with
yeah,
Ferrari.
yeah, and also I'll just say, yeah, that seat's definitely open for Hamilton if he wants it. I don't think
Yeah,
it's actually open, but if Hamilton was like, I want out, Red Bull take me in that seat, he would be in there tomorrow.
yeah.
So
I
he's
agree with that.
Hamilton. But that seat's not open because I think a rookie seized it this weekend. But yeah, no, and then obviously with Leclerc, we haven't talked about Leclerc and his
Yeah,
I guess they made the decision to avoid getting undercut by the Mercedes of Antonelli. Good pit stop, came out right where they calculated it. We're gonna come out in front of him if we do this. They did. And then Antonelli decided that he was going to drive through Leclerc to try and make the overtake happen, and obviously took him out. Um,
I think
yeah, I
that
mean,
was
it
the
wasn't it
YOLO
wasn't it
moment of the
wasn't
year.
a race that was going great for Leclerc anyway, but obviously that awful situation for that team.
I'm calling that, putting my vote in for the YOLO moment of the year by Kimi Antonelli. He just went for it and said, "I don't care. I'm putting my foot in it. I'm coming around this bank, and I'm pulling a Daytona right here. I'm just going at it and just playing my foot and see where I land afterwards." And he took out Leclerc there. I kind of, I mean, did Antonelli get a penalty for that?
Yeah, he did. I think it was 10 second,
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure because he
which is cool
definitely,
because he went to like the back of the grid anyway, and then it didn't even
yeah,
matter. So it's like the anti what happened. So Hamilton commits a questionable whether it was even an infringement before the race. Five quit place penalty at the next race because they couldn't figure that out. Antonelli got that penalty before that safety car even ended. Like it was great. Like they quickly got that one done. Yeah, no, I think it was partially. I think one of the hardest things for young drivers to do is just accept that they're not in front. And they went for the undercut. He tried to make the time up, and he didn't. Ferrari got the pit stop done. They got Leclerc out in front of him, and you got to see that coming out of the pits and understand I'm behind him. I got to slot in here. He just wouldn't do it. He set it up the inside. Obviously, that didn't work. And I don't. I think honestly, I think that's that steep banking turn that's almost reminiscent of an oval we've talked about, and being on the inside line there is hard, and I think he just lost. He just drifted. It's hard to stay. It's hard to hug that line because
yeah,
it's not. You're not supposed to drive down there. Essentially, like Leclerc's on the racing line, giving as much space as you possibly can by while staying on the track, and still got wiped out just because holding it on that inside line on essentially an oval level banking is you have to really back out of it to stick
it's
on that
tough.
line. He didn't do it, and yeah, no, I think people obviously like we're cover Formula One. We love Grand Prix racing. Like ovals are not easy, and I think people make the mistake of thinking they are. And you can see that right there. That it's hard to stick the car consistently on that line, especially when you're not on the optimal line to get to not fishtail like that. And he just kind of went out of control and wiped out Leclerc, who kind of lost all of his body work on that one. The front and the back
The
came
whole
off. And,
front end came off.
yeah,
Everything came off.
yeah.
And
Oh
then
yeah,
and
I
then
forgot about this. He also did speed
yeah.
then too, so we got another 10 seconds added
By
on
the
for
way,
good measure.
I love the sights and the sounds of seeing Leclerc and Lando sitting on the beach, pretty much like on a
Yeah.
sand dune, like lamenting the race, and just it was interesting to see that. That's going to be one of those iconic scenes that we have for this year, kind of a la Kimi, and going to the boat in Monaco and stuff like that. Leclerc sitting on the
Well,
dunes
well, I
in
think especially
Zandvoort.
Lando, if Oscar ends up winning the
Oh
championship,
yeah,
that's going to be the one that's where it was lost.
oh yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah, so Ferrari not a good weekend for there. All right, we've come to the time. I mean, I'm not going to even say anything. You can talk about the third place driver. The floor is yours.
I mean, I'm just gonna say he had a good race overall. He had he was up there battling with George, with Max, with all of them throughout the entire race. He had there was a couple really good drivers from today. It all kind of blanked out and got better for them because of what happened with Lando, obviously. But it was still good for to see Isaac up there and see him. Everybody knows I've been a really big proponent of his this entire year. I've been saying how quality he is, and that I think that he is somebody who can be in that Red Bull seat with Max, and at least give them something to look forward to in the future. I don't think that they see a future with Yuki. I don't see them doing much more than a second or third driver, even with Liam. But at least Isaac is kind of showing that he can be that next guy up, maybe for that next starring role, or at least a good backup role for Max if Max ends up staying with Red Bull moving forward after 2026. I think is what he signed through. Um, but just overall for a rookie to come out or to come in here, in this day of age where these cars are so dominant. I mean, I know we had the Lewis Hamiltons back in the day. Max Verstappen, I think one race in his rookie year or something like that. But Lewis was basically on the podium every single race his rookie
Yeah, I mean
year.
Lewis finished a point off of winning the championship as a rookie.
Exactly. So,
Just
so,
crazy.
but nowadays it's a little bit more, top heavy, especially with some of these cars, and you don't get a lot of these young guys except for obviously what we're seeing with, Oscar Piastri, really get up there and be able to battle, for a championship. But even last year, Oscar wasn't, you know, he was doing good, but, and he, won one or two races, I think it was.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah, something
so
like that.
yeah, he had a good year, but he was also in the McLaren that now we're seeing is a race winning car. Isaac is doing this in a Racing Bulls, which is basically the car that people think is just the development, the backup, the second team of Red Bull, and he's really showing that he can have some good quality races and some good solid showings in that car, and to the point that we were making about this is what we want to see out of somebody who potentially will be in that Red Bull seat next year. It's showing that he's able to handle the pressure of being able to go ahead and do this, because getting through that last safety car restart ahead of George Russell, ahead of Alex Albon, that everybody knows how quality I think he is and how good of a driver I think Alex Albon is. To be able to stay ahead of them and still end up in third place, I think is a really good showing for him overall. I do also want to shout out Ollie Berman though. Ollie Berman, man, what a race for him. I mean that's gonna be kind of. I mean I know everybody's probably thinking I was gonna pick Isaac for my surprise of the day, but I'm going Ollie Berman with that one. I'm sorry. He didn't he start from the pits or something like that. Or he
I
started
think so. Yeah,
towards the
wait in the
back.
back somewhere.
And he top six. I mean, come on, in a Haas, both Haas's in the top 10. Come
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
man.
It's definitely it was Haas's weekend.
Yeah, so that's a good showing for them. Yeah, you got to be happy for those guys. So,
Yeah,
but
just back to Hajar. I mean, comparing anyone to Hamilton's rookie year, like there's a
it's
reason he's
impossible.
considered the
Yeah.
great. Well, I mean, that McLaren was obviously competitive, but he was brought in to be Alonso's number two driver,
Oh yeah.
and he beat him, which is why
Yeah.
there was all that blow up at the team and all, because Alonso's like, this kid's faster than me, crap, and it caused problems.
Oh, how
Um,
history repeats
but
itself.
no, but I think it would be similar to like if they put Hajar in the Red Bull this year and he was just beating Max
Oh yeah.
constantly. That's what Hamilton did, so it's a little bit different. They put him in a car that was championship caliber, which most rookies just don't get that opportunity. He did, but he also beat a 2-time champion that was supposed to be the number 1 driver. So that's he's Hamilton's one of one in terms of just the level of skill he displayed from day one to be that quick and clearly just be one of, if not the best driver in the grid from the second he showed up. But yeah, I think Hadjar is. I'd be shocked if he's not in that Red Bull seat next year. He's shown consistency after his little snafu to start the season. He's shown consistency that I think they're looking for in that seat. And I think the only reason they might hesitate is just they keep putting these promising young drivers in there, and they exit not promising young drivers anymore. And I don't. There should, at least, if they're really being introspective, some concern about ruining him. Because they've ruined other drivers. And so that would be the only kind of hesitation I would have on them, but I don't think they have any better options. So, or any even viable options, I should say. So yeah, he'll probably go into that seat. All right, let's take a look at the.
That's what we're hoping. At least that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, no, I think he's earned it, and I just my only concern is that second seat at Red Bull chews you up and spits you out.
Yeah.
And my concern is, that again, he's someone that has a lot of promise, and you want him to have that space to develop and not get Albon under gas lead where they don't even get a full season, just get punted out of the team. Now they're both still successful Formula One drivers. They're obviously both still on the grid. You can see Albon sitting there in 5th. Like they landed on their feet. They won races. Like actually, Albon hasn't won a race. Gasly has, but they landed on their feet though. And, you can do that. You can recover. To me, that's almost a sign of how tough that seat is. And you just worry that if they move into it too quickly. Because while Gasly and Albon have recovered to be successful Formula One drivers, they're very unlikely to get a shot at the top team again. And, going at the right time to the right team matters a lot when you're young. And so that's the only concern I'd have with. But I think he's earned it.
Somebody said something somewhere where it was like they said if Max was in a Racing Bulls this year, he'd be leading the championship.
No, he wouldn't. But that's great and everything. But no, I mean look.
I mean that's kind of interesting though to think about because it's like that car is showing that it's competitive. His car isn't competitive. I mean, it's competitive.
His car is. So I still think on balance it is faster. I think Yuki is awful, and so is Liam Lawson, and that's why they're competing on a different level.
Yeah.
I think if you switch Hadjar let's say you switch, let's use Hadjar because let's at least get a functional driver in the Red Bull. Switched him and Max. It's possible the Racing Bull's ahead of the Red Bull, but it's not up there with like the McLaren. Like there's no way. Yeah. I don't know. Max is a miracle worker. Right? It's not up there with the Ferraris and the Mercedes either consistently. So he's not. I mean, it's possible that Racing Bull could be ahead of Red Bull if you swap drivers, but you know what? I'm not so sure that wasn't the case like last year. So when Max won the championship in the Red Bull, because he is that much better than, frankly, well, we'll see with Hadjar because again, he's young and is showing a lot of promise, but at least everyone else he's had, including Checo, the last few years. If you look at the people in that race, in that Red Bull outfit, like either of the teams, he's so far above and beyond anyone that's been driving the Racing Bull or the Red Bull that it's just, it's hard to compare. So maybe we'll get a better comparison with Hadjar next year, assuming he's in there. All right, well, Evan, we've danced around it. We have not actually shown it, but this is what has happened to our glorious championship battle.
35 points now?
It is 34.
34 points.
34.
It's still within reach, man. I mean,
it's definitely within reach. It's like I said, the first to second gap is 8 points. It's 25-17. So if it's 8 points or 7 points. It's 8 points, right?
No, I think it's 7 points.
Is it 7?
It's 7.
It is 7. All right, so you're gonna have to, so if it's 7 points. So, I mean, that is, 34 points is 5 race wins.
I mean, think about it. Yeah, I mean, we're both football guys, which, by the way, go Kings.
Go Canes.
We're both football guys, so we know 7 times 5 is 35. That's an easy number for us to think about. So realistically, if he wins 5 out of the next few races, he will be up there. If he wins the next
well,
5
no,
races,
this is the challenge, right? So like anytime he doesn't win, if it's Oscar, he's gonna lose that win back. So he's got a net 5 more wins out of 8.
Exactly.
Which means he's got to win 7 out of the 8. Because if he wins 6, and this is okay. So first of all, massive assumption, which likely is not going to transpire, is that it's a McLaren 1-2 in every race.
Yeah.
If it is, even if he wins 6 of the 8, and Oscar wins the other 2, that's only 4 races he's may have 28 points. He loses the championship by 6.
Okay.
Now I think there's one more sprint race left, right? So like that's going to change the math a little bit.
So
there are 8 points available.
A possibility.
There's definitely a possibility.
A big possibility.
Yeah, there's definitely a possibility. I think for Lando, the goal now is to get within 1 race. Yeah. So 25 points is a race. Get within that, the pressure comes up on Oscar. Oscar has 1 bad race, even if it's not DNF. If he doesn't finish second in a race, that opens up more of a gap there. But yeah, Lando's basically, I think, got to win probably at least 5 or 6 races to win the championship, and then hope Oscar doesn't finish second in the other 2, and that'll do it. But yeah, if he wins 7, he's guaranteed.
Yeah.
If he wins 6, he will have made up 22 points, which is not enough.
And it's still
28 points. Yeah, no, it's right.
A possibility.
Again, there's some points available in the sprint race, and it's not over.
Yeah, and that's really what we want to see. We want to see that there's still going to be competitive juices within them, that they're not just kind of throwing in the towel and saying, hey, we'll just play second fiddle to you for the rest of the year. They're still going to be battling. They're still going to be going at it with each other. Hopefully we're going to see good racing throughout the rest of the year. Between them, and I would like to see some of these other drivers come back up and start to fight a little bit more towards the end of the year as well, because that would still make everything interesting. We hope that the Ferraris are going to have a good week this week. Coming into to one of the greatest tracks, that we're going to talk about in a little bit. We want to see the Ferraris battle up there. We want to see the Kimi go up there and have a good showing, because he's an Italian kid going to Monza for his first time in Formula One. So, well, I guess second time, because last year he had his test there that he famously spun out in. So let's see how he responds coming into there with the actual seat, going into it this year. And then, how Max does, how everybody else, George and everybody else for the rest of the year. We want to see them all kind of have, good races here towards the end, which will also help with, the McLaren's, battle, because if you have those other guys finishing up there, then, it's less points. Maybe more points will be made up by Lando, or less points will be had by Oscar, and it'll close in. So, I just want to see these last few races be competitive for everybody. This was kind of a bad weekend, obviously, we talked about for Ferrari and Mercedes overall, because, Kimi having the issues that he had. And then, we want good racing all the way up and down the field. We like seeing some of these younger guys do good, but this is the time of the year that we want to see the stars kind of shine, and we want to see good racing throughout the field.
Yeah, and that's why, like, if Lando can close this back down under 25 points, then everything becomes live then, because then it's like same thing could happen to Oscar, just happened to Lando, and then he's in front, right? Exactly. As long as he's outside that 25 point gap, then it does kind of a little bit take some of it off, just because right now, whatever happens with Oscar and Monza, he's still going to be leading the championship coming out of now. There's 8 races left, so that's fine now. But if we start down to 2 races left and still 30 points, then it becomes much more challenging. So yeah, it's really important for Lando to do well this weekend, win the race, finish in front of Oscar, and then that puts some more pressure back the other way, especially since we have some sprint races coming up too, where you can get additional points. The constructors,
that's a whole different story, ladies.
Yeah, well, this one got a lot tighter between. Antonelli did some. Well, Antonelli did some good work for his team there, wiping out Leclerc. So the only one that scored points out of Ferrari and Mercedes this weekend is George Russell. Came in third, I believe, fourth. We know came in third. So that was 12 points added to Mercedes tally. So they have closed the gap to 12 points. That is most definitely the most interesting kind of race we have here in the constructors is those two, and then obviously down at the bottom is still bunch between Racing Bulls, Aston Martin, Kick Sauber. It's hard to, when you're scrapping for the bottom of the point scoring positions. It is very hard to make up points. You're talking about 1, 2, 3 points for those last spots. So that 60 to 51 points is probably insurmountable. Because Kick Sauber's not going to win a race or something. They're trying to get those bottom points, but definitely the Austin and the Williams and the Racing Bulls. The Austin and the Racing Bulls. That is live for sure. 2 points is definitely flippable. Yeah. That's probably the other. That's probably the only other battle. So we're talking about second and third and sixth and seventh are very much up for grabs. Yeah. Even second and third making up 12 points when you're kind of best case, I guess. Well. Technically, if a McLaren wrecks or blows an engine, then you can get the second. But really, you're talking about, 15 points for third, 12 for fourth, and that's kind of where they're starting at. It's hard to make up 12 points too, but if you get your teammate to wipe out the lead other team's car, and you finish in fourth, that's 12 points to Mercedes just this weekend. So that one's definitely still raring to go as we head to Ferrari's home race, Monza, and we have an upgraded version of the videos Evan has been doing. So I'm going to play that, and he'll take us through a lap of Monza here.
Let's go through a lap here at Monza. Cars approach the first corner at 210 miles per hour in 8th gear and brake at about 120 meters before the first chicane, the Variante del Rettifilo. This is the scene of many first-lap accidents. Good traction out of the first corner is imperative for a quick lap. A small mistake here can result in a lot of time being lost through the Curva Grande down to the Variante della Roggia chicane in 8th gear. This chicane is probably the best overtaking chance on the lap. The Curve di Lesmo are 2 corners that are not as fast as they used to be. The first is blind, entered at 170 miles per hour and has a slight banking. The second is a 7th gear entry, and it is very important that all the curb is used. The downhill straight down to Variante Ascari is very bumpy under the bridge. Variante Ascari is a very tricky sequence of corners and is key to the lap time. The final challenge is the Curva Parabolica Alboreto. Approaching at 208 miles per hour in 8th gear, cars quickly dance around the corner, apexing in 6th gear at 142 miles per hour and exiting in 6th gear at over 175 miles per hour, accelerating onto the main start-finish straight to finish the lap up.
Can't hear you, Vish.
Yeah, that happens when you mute yourself. Then people can't hear you. Good catch there. I kind of did the host equivalent of a Ferrari pit stop, but they call it the Temple of Speed for a reason. You saw why. That is a fast lap, Evan. As I pull up kind of the circuit, you can take us through it a little bit more detail here.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's one of those tracks that we love seeing. That's very classic track. We talk about this all the time now. When they go to these tracks that are these older tracks, 1950, it's been on the circuit on the Formula One list since the inception of Formula One. Now it's changed a lot over the years, but overall it's still a power circuit. This is the most powerful circuit, or power sensitive circuit on all of Formula One. Basically a bunch of straights with a couple little turns in between. That main straight, they're going to go the fastest these cars see almost all year. I think Mexico City they go a little bit faster, but that's more because of the elevation and the fact that there's thinner air, and the cars can go a little bit faster there. But you're going to see these cars with wings that are basically paper thin. They're going to be flying, over 200 miles per hour down that main street, going into that first chicane, where just like it said in the video, there's been a lot of incidents there. We all think back to the Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, incident there a few years back. That was one of the most incredible accidents that you'll ever see. But throughout the entire track, there's always incidents, like that. At both the Lesmos, Lesmo 1 and Lesmo 2, cars can go flying off there. I talked about earlier Kimi Antonelli at Parabolica last year in Free Practice 1. If you don't slow that car down going through that last main street before the Parabolica, you're going to go wide there. It's more of like where we just saw in Zandvoort, a lot of these banked turns. The Parabolica is more like Indianapolis, where it's more of a flat, turn or wide turn like that. So they're pulling a lot of G-forces going into that first part of the Parabolica, as you can see right there into that last, the second to last turn, I guess you could call it. It's a lot sharper, and then it opens up coming out of it going onto the main straight. But that first little sharp, part of it is a lot of drivers can get caught out there, especially if you run a little wide or you take a lot of G's going into it. But it's a simple track. There's not a lot of there's not a lot of elevation changes or a lot of real, tricky sequences like we see at like places like Spa or like, or in Silverstone and stuff like that. It's only really a couple types of turns. There's, chicane. There's 3 chicanes and 4 other turns besides that. So besides that, it's a bunch of straights and plant your foot on the floor and go as fast as you can. But it makes for great racing. That's the whole point of it. That's why we love to see it. That's why this is one of those races that you're going to get a lot of people watching on TV. The stands are going to be completely full. All of Ferrari people, there. And it's always a fun race to watch. Last year we had a good race, with Charles Leclerc coming out on top, after making a great strategy call that they made. And hopefully we see something similar again this year.
Yeah, and to your point, like, it's not the most technical, tricky track. Like you said, a lot of it's like flat out, but it's very punishing to mistakes. And, we just mentioned Antonelli in the Dutch Grand Prix, not just, hey, I got to let it go. I'm not going to overtake him. He beat me out of the pits. Like, making those decisions are how you win races here. You mentioned the Max Lewis incident. I mean, that was Max basically saying, I'm going to crash him out because he's overtaking me. I mean, that was in the heat of that championship battle. He should have gotten penalized for it, but he didn't. But yeah. He wiped Hamilton out to make sure he couldn't complete the overtake. But like you said, we have seen, especially at the Parabolica, where it looks, especially on the onboards, it looks simpler than it is because it feels like, oh, it's just no. If you look at the circuit, like it's in front of us, the yellow sector, and it is almost a hairpin. It's very, like you said, it's very difficult to get the line and the speed exactly right. And we see crashes there every year when someone's like, no, I think I can hold it. You can't hold it. If you miss the line, if you're carrying too much speed in, you just got to back out of it and take the time penalty for doing that and not try to hold it through there. And invariably we see people try to hold it through there and end up in the wall. And this track is a lot tougher than it seems. And it's very punishing to mistakes. So it favors those drivers that are smooth, under control, make those business decisions of, over the 53 laps, there are times where I'm not going to get, the max. I'm not going to get the right exit in the third sector, and I'm just going to have to back off a little bit, sacrifice a few tenths, a half a second, that one lap to make sure I keep the thing on the track. And we've seen time and again drivers not make that decision and regret it. So,
I mean, case in point, spoiler alert, throwing that out there right now. This was a track, and this was the part in the F1 movie where the main character or I guess co-main character Damon had his big wreck was at the Parabolica. It was going into that turn that we're all talking about that Kimi Antonelli had his issues with last year. It was, I think it was raining in the movie, but if I'm not mistaken, but he did have the wreck right there, and that's because it is a tricky corner. And you know that they didn't just choose that corner because it was just a random corner and a random track that they were just happened to be at that point in the story. They know that that's a tough corner. They that's how deep that movie got into these things. They had Lewis Hamilton advising on the entirety of that movie. I'm sure he was like, they probably asked him, where's the one corner that if there's gonna be a mistake, it's gonna be a big mistake that's gonna cause a lot of the character in that movie to have to be out for a while. I'm sure Lewis went right in and said Parabolica, and he said that's where, if there's gonna be a crash, that's where it's gonna happen. That's where it's gonna be, and it's gonna be something that ends up being really really devastating for the character during the movie, and that's how it is, because that's how punishing, you used a great word there. That's how punishing this track can be, especially at those certain parts of it.
Yep. No, it's definitely one that can, if you make a mistake, you'll know it immediately. As we mentioned last week, they've released the entire season's worth of tires. In this case, we are in Italy. It is the middle range here, and it's the same as last year. And this is always a one stopper, pretty much. So,
Yeah.
So we should expect to see that this week. No real surprises there. The timing, we got a traditional European schedule: 7:30 practice 1 on Friday, 11 o'clock on Friday practice 2, practice 3 on Sunday at 6:30. Practice qualifying Sunday at 10 a.m. and the race 9 a.m. on Sunday. After I don't know, it'll be a fun morning for me after the Canes game. But in terms of weather, probably okay. A little bit, maybe some showering on Friday, a little bit into Saturday, but should be dry for the race.
Yeah.
So, and you know what? I kind of want to see that straight shot. I don't want this to become one of those races where it's just like, it's dodging this and that, and then like, oh, we're not going to start it because God forbid we drive on the wets anymore.
Yeah.
Just like, I'd rather just, what, good old dry race. I'm good with. Let's get some good racing. I want to see. Look, it's the Temple of Speed. I want to see. I want to see these cars go. It's the Temple of Speed. We want to see that speed, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, in terms of this weekend, what drivers are you looking at for? Who has caught your eye?
Well, I mean, we got to see how Lando's going to react towards it. We got to see how he's going to, come out after this past weekend. We all know how fast that car is. We all know that's going to be probably the class of the field going into the weekend. But, we got to see how he bounces back. And we've been talking about this all year because this has been kind of the running theme of this year's championship is how is Lando going to bounce back after X mistake or X situation that happens with him. So that's what I'm looking for. But then again, we got to see what Ferrari's going to do. This is their home, second home, first home, whatever you want to call it. Besides Imola, this is their other home, race. It's going to be filled with Ferrari fans. It's going to be the Tifosi all out, craziness throughout the entire weekend. So let's see how they do it. They are the previous winners of this track last year. They did win it here, so let's see how that turns out. I would love to see Lewis Hamilton win here in red. I mean, we'll get into that. We'll get into predictions, but
I mean, he's not set up to do that with this penalty.
He's not, but I mean, come on, what incredible story that would be, going into it with a 10-place grid penalty and then being able to come back and win the race. That would be a beautiful sight. But we'll see how it all works out. But yeah, overall, for McLaren, I want to see Lando bounce back and then just to see how the Ferraris do overall.
Yeah, no, that'll be interesting. It's their home race after a double DNF. Just real quick, Anthony had a couple of questions in the chat. First of all, shout out to Carly. And we never actually shout out Jeff, who got in here and got his iPad to autocorrect Morgan to Morgana da Clemente,
I
the
don't
Spanish
know, man.
version of Morgan's name, I guess.
I don't know.
He said his iPad did the Spanish translation, and then Anthony had a couple of questions. We actually talked about this last week. I think we both concluded, they went with the veteran drivers to help stability and develop the car. And then for this is an interesting question. I would actually say it's Monza.
You think Monza's tougher mentally for them?
I think so, because Monaco, look, for all we talk about like it being intricate, you kind of don't have to go fast. No one can pass you anyway. And to me, as these drivers have gotten more mature, I mean, what we saw this year is what's tipping it that way for me, because we saw repeatedly drivers be able to drive whatever the opposite of the limit is, hold the whole pack up, not even be threatened, and allowed their other teammate to pit twice in front of them. If you can go that slow and not get overtaken, to me, that takes a lot of the pressure off.
You see, I'm going the opposite way with it. I think that Monaco is definitely the more mentally taxing place to drive, just because it's so tight. It's so you got the walls inches away from you. I get where you're coming from, and I understand. A lot of these guys are driving probably at 7/10, but Monza. I mean, I'm going off of my experience in sim racing. In sim racing, I can tell you right now, every time Monza comes up and I'm able to drive a Monza, I do it. I love it. It's fun. It's amazing. Even in the F1 game, when I was sitting there playing it by myself, not competing against anybody else, when Monaco comes up, I skip the race because I'm going to crash.
But that's not the same thing as a professional race car driver.
You're absolutely right. It's not the same as a professional race car driver. I am nowhere near a professional race car driver. I'm somebody who just loves racing and loves to do it, on a simulator, with friends, with people online. I enjoy doing that. I can tell you that you have to be on 100% of the time. Your brain has to be on 100% of the time going through that track in Monaco. And I'm sure that even the professional drivers, even these guys who are doing this for a living every single day, the top of the top drivers in the world, besides for Lance Stroll, they have to be on their A game every step of the way, every single second around Monaco. Monza, on the other hand, there's basically 3 chicanes and 4 turns. It's you could do it blindfolded. Now,
yeah, but you have to spend so much more time worrying about your opponents at Monza than at Monaco. Monaco, you're literally just don't bin it. No one can overtake me.
So then that's what it is. You're more worried about the track side of it. You're more worried about the fact that the people aren't going to be able to pass you compared to somebody who is. I'm more worried about the fact that the walls are this close to.
Yeah, I will say the question was what's tougher mentally. I would say qualifying for sure, Monaco.
Yeah.
I think the race at that point, you're pretty much gonna just sit where you are. It doesn't it's such a nothing race that it's. Yeah. In fact, it's only when they try to overtake that they get into issues. But I don't know, that race just feels like it's just a parade at this point.
Pop up his last comment, by the way, so I can answer
I see that.
Because he's the only driver in the field that doesn't belong in Formula One. He's not a good driver. He's only there because his father owns the team.
Yeah, we don't need
my reasoning behind
it. Yeah, yes, the Arch Manning of Formula One does not need to be in there.
Oh my God!
All right, but anyway, who am I looking at? I'm looking at the Mercedes. Okay, so there's kind of two competitions right now, really that are hot. One is the drivers. Lando's down 34 points as we saw, but he's still in it. So definitely looking at the 2 McLarens, how they stack up, and then I'm still that Ferrari Mercedes team battle. They've started crashing into each other. It's all kicking off now. So I'm looking at those 2 teams. This is one where, like you said, Ferrari generally does well. It's their home race. Mercedes is 12 points back now. They've got to make. They cannot afford to lose ground again here. So I'm looking at those 2 teams to see where they finish in particular, to see if Antonelli with his kind of first home race, how he does with that pressure on after having really has worse probably performance considering as Morgan said, when you end the race with 20 seconds of penalties and wipe someone out, then it's not a great weekend for you. So adding that pressure to now his home race, I'll be interested to see how they do. So I'm really looking at the Mercedes and the Ferraris.
Okay.
All right, we have reached prediction time. For those of you in the chat, feel free to put your top three and a surprise finisher. Evan, the floor is yours.
So I'm going to go Lando with the bounce back. I'm going to go George in P2 and Oscar in P3. I think you're going to see the Mercedes, the Mercedes cars in general dominate this week. I could see something going down, like it being a little cooler, because we did say that it was a possibility of rain. Maybe not super super hot. And we do know that that Mercedes does like a little colder weather. So I could see something like that happening, and just seeing them, those Mercedes in general, being a little bit more competitive, and George being a little bit more competitive with it going into the weekend, and then hopefully seeing something like Lando just coming out and dominating and being ahead throughout practices like he was, but then actually get it done during qualifying and let those two battle behind him. Because I do think that it would be an interesting battle to see between George and Oscar, especially when the Mercedes is on. When it's good, it's good. When it's not good, we know it's not good. So my surprise though is I'm going to call Lewis top 5 after that 10th place grid penalty.
Wow.
I think Lewis, getting back up, and it's going to take something drastic. It's going to take him being, in the top 5 in qualifying, maybe 3 or 4 or something like that in qualifying, and then, coming back up through the field right at the beginning of the race or during a safety car incident or something like that, to where he can really kind of, take a bunch of places right there, at Scar or not a Scar at some of those chicanes that he's very good at, and we all have seen him be very good here in the past. So I'm gonna say him top 5 after that 10th place grid penalty.
That it's 5 places, but
still
be impressive. 10 places would be even more impressive.
I keep on saying 10. I don't know why.
I think you probably saw what I did, which is it's supposed to be 10. They gave him some leniency for attempting to slow down, so I gave him 5. Yeah,
even easier.
Yep. And then Carly's got Max to win. Shocking. Lando second, Charles third, and surprise Oscar DNF. I don't think it's the worst surprise. I think that works when you have a 5-place grid penalty in a car that's probably not a top, it's borderline top 5 car, and so you gotta basically finish +5 over your spots. Exactly. It's the same thing as like putting like a a strike or whatever in the points. Same difference, I think, for in the top 5 with a 5-place penalty. All right. I thought we were shadowing each other again. So I had Lando to win. I have George Russell second.
Oh, nice.
I was like, I swear to God, if you say the next two in order, then you switch. So I was like, all right, we're at least a little variability. I have Charles Leclerc third. I did go for the Ferrari bounce, but the other driver. And I echoed Carly here. I went Oscar DNF. Back on the horse here.
That'll be interesting.
It's more, God, I hate to say this because, like, look, Oscar's a McLaren driver. He is.
Yeah.
We're gonna celebrate his championship if he closes this out. And yet, I kind of would not mind. I don't want him to get in an accident or injury or anything. But if he gets a Lando engine let go and to spice things up a little bit, I wouldn't necessarily mind that, even a McLaren fan, just because it doesn't. The championship is so secured by a McLaren driver. I want to see a competitive finish.
And I mean, the thing about it is me and you have been McLaren fans for a long time. We've been McLaren fans since the cold hard days, since the Vodafone, silver, mirrored cars that were in the 2000s, or the McLarens from the early 90s with Senna, or even the McLarens from the 70s. We've been fans of,
Well, I
of this
wasn't.
team.
I'm not that old.
But I'm not that old either, but I'm still a fan of those cars and those drivers. That's my point. I've followed this team for a long time. And being that we're fans of this team, the guy who's been with the team since he started in Formula One has been Lando Norris. So you can't fault us for wanting the guy who's been loyal to this team, who has had other offers. I'm sure Red Bull has looked at him multiple times to fill that seat, but he's been loyal to McLaren. He's stuck it in there with them when they were bad, when he was pitting every lap on the first race of the season because his car couldn't do anything. He stuck with them. And now that they finally got to the point to where this car is the dominant car, we want to see him win. I hate to be biased because again, it is still a McLaren. It is still our team that's winning. I want to see Lando win the championship. I will say that unequivocally. I am completely biased on that. I want to see Lando win the championship. Is it going to happen? Who knows? We'll see in the next 8 or 9 races. He's just the guy that I want to see win. I am completely biased about it, and I am unapologetically biased about it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's a little bit much to then wish ill on your other teammate. That's where I'm like, I don't feel great about it, but I'm doing it under the guise of he'll still be in first.
Yeah.
And then they can find it out again. So I'm lying to myself a little bit. It's kind of a little bit of deplorable behavior on my part when it's my own team.
Yeah.
But I'd like it to be competitive down to the end. Obviously, I think we both would prefer Lando to win, but either way, a McLaren driver is going to win the Drivers' Championship for the first time since Lewis Hamilton in 2008. So that is,
and they're going to win for the second year in a row. They've already won pretty much the constructor.
Well, they've already won them both. There's no.
Yeah,
I don't think in fact. Let me just. If Oscar and Lando both don't race again this year, they'll probably win. I think it's that far ahead, right? No, actually, no.
No,
Max is 200. Max is 205. So, in theory, he can still get 200 more points if the other two don't drive. So he could theoretically. It's basically over. Which is why I'm a little bit more comfortable with this. If it was there was a third driver in the mix, then this is where you gotta just be like, I hope Oscar wins every race now, so he wins the championship. But it's not. It's going to be one of those two. So you're still, we'll have to be competitive.
I guess we'll see.
We will see, and we will be back next week to review Monza, and then it's off to I believe Azerbaijan, right? I think so. Next is the last. I think it's the last. Get that up real quick. Yep, is a week gap, and then Azerbaijan, which is the last race in Europe on the season, and then from there it is. I'll just pull up the whole schedule here real quick so we can see where we're headed from here. So after Azerbaijan, then Singapore. And then hold on, let me there it goes. Okay, after Singapore is why is this? I swear they've kind of messed up this whole website. It used to be so easy to find things. Okay, here we go. All right, so it's Azerbaijan, then Singapore, then Austin, Mexico, Brazil, Vegas, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi to end. So those are your 8 races left to go.
Azerbaijan, that's Baku, right?
Yep, that is Baku.
Okay.
That's another
one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's another fun one. And we will be talking about that actually, I guess in 2 weeks because we got a little week gap here. So there's actually going to be a week off between Italy and Azerbaijan. So we'll review Monza next week and then do Azerbaijan preview the week after. And then off to then another week gap off to Singapore, then another week gap to Austin, and that's when they start coming in. Mexico, and then actually another gap to Brazil. These are somewhat spaced out.
Well, they're going basically into December, right?
Yeah, but then the last 3 races are Vegas, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi with no gaps in between. So they go from Vegas to Qatar without any time off. It's crazy.
It's gonna be insane.
But yeah, that's the end stretch. But other than that, I don't think we have consecutive. Okay, we do between Austin and Mexico City. There's
Yeah.
consecutive weekends. Other than that, there's a gap between each one.
Interesting.
So they spaced it out a bit. Yeah, we'll be back next week to talk about Monza. Hopefully, Lando gets a little bit of a gets back in the game here. It's not dejected coming off of that. Carly's roasting your dad. As we end the show here. Thanks everyone for watching. As always, we'll be back next week. Thanks everyone for joining me, and go Lando, go get that win.
For sure. Good night, guys.